Hey, welcome everyone. So thanks so much for joining and listening to this. We have another special edition here. Before we get into Renoir, as Adam said, we're not escaping Renoir. We've seen a lot more painful films than that. I think it's going to be a fun discussion. We'll be here before long. Really enjoyed Adam's ranking last week. If you haven't heard the Tarantino rankings, I think that's definitely worth a listen. He did a great job with that. Got me kind of re-excited to go back and revisit his films. Um, I am in the middle of a Kieslowski run, so at some point in 2023, I'll do a ranking of Kieslowski. But that'll be a few months away probably at the pace I'm going. Um, I thought I would do something a little bit different with this one. So, y'all hear my voice a lot in the interviews, and for those that are regular listeners, again, thank you so much. And I would really love to hear from you, whether it's on the subreddit or on Twitter, Instagram. There's a million places to find us and to find me. Um, I would love to hear what y'all think, but what I wanted to do for this one was, since we have the floor and we have a chance to kind of get some special episodes in, I thought it'd be. I hope you don't mind. I thought it could be interesting for some of y'all just to get to know me a little bit. And as Adam and Zach have a chance, they can maybe do the same thing and as they feel comfortable. But um, I'm going to kind of go through uh, in somewhat of a systematic fashion, just to get to know me personally a little bit, life and work, and then sort of my collection. I um, collecting has always been a big thing for me. I privately, because I think it sounds goofy, but I don't call it my collection. I call it my library. Um, and I really treat my library as something that is kind of built for preservation, and I really look at it that way. And I'll just do kind of a breakdown of what I own and how many, and just sort of get a feel for that, how I buy, what I buy, and then kind of how I watch and what I watch and how I pick what to watch and that. And so, and then a little bit at the end for what else I'm into from a arts perspective. I hope this is interesting for you, and if you do stick around and listen, and I say anything that's offensive, or you hate the way that I collect, let me know. I can take it, I promise. So I'll jump in. Really, again, if you do listen to a fair amount of these, little pieces of this are going to sound familiar. But I'm 40. I live in Texas. I live in Austin. I'm sure that's come up before. And I'm married and I have one child. So that's me kind of personally. Lived. I grew up. I was born in Alaska and then promptly moved to Houston. Lived in Oklahoma, Louisiana, London, England, back in Houston, all before high school, and then moved to Jakarta, Indonesia, and spent high school there. And so some of the interviews where I talk about living in Indonesia, that's why I actually was living there for high school, and then came back to the U.S. for college for my undergrad, and then later on I did my master's both in Texas but at different universities. Undergrad in finance and a master's in counseling, actually. So not using the counseling degree. I'm in sales. I'm in tech sales. I work for a system integrator. So basically, if I work in a part of tech that's hard to say in one sentence, but essentially, um, the deals that I'm working on, we sell into companies. They're all anywhere from one to kind of $40 million of in one sell. So we try to put these big kind of enterprise technology deals together. If people need to upgrade their finance systems or the systems that people are using to for HR or accounting, these different things. So that's what I do in my day job, and think about movies all the time. I typically watch about a movie a day. I try to. It doesn't. I've been landing somewhere between 300 to 300 and but let's just say between 3 and 400 for the last 4 years. Um, I went through a huge period between 2009, 2010, and about 2019 where I wasn't watching movies that much at all. Just trying to get businesses going and family and just for a variety of reasons. And so it's been really, really fun the last 4 or 5 years to get back into this. And I am extremely humbled by the people that say yes to the podcast. I still don't really believe it, to be honest. I know we have several interviews now, but every time someone says yes, I still get excited because it still feels surreal that all these people that I grew up buying from and watching and listening to are saying yes to these interviews. So that's a little bit about me. Um, I thought it could be interesting, and I hope y'all agree. I thought it could be interesting to go into, how I collect it very, very often on Reddit, on the subreddits. People post questions about how do y'all budget? Um, what do you buy? What do you not buy? Do you ever blind buy? As if it's a, you know, uh, like the some kind of a politically divisive question, like asking if you're red or blue. Um, there's a lot of tension around asking people if they blind buy. Um, so I just thought I would spend a little bit of time about how I collect and what I collect and just get so y'all could get a sense of that. Um, my I truly do look at it as if I'm collecting for the sake of building a library. And I've said this before on different shows and different forums, but if you were to go back 30 years ago and see somebody with 1,000 books on their shelves, I don't think it would be common to say to ask the kinds of questions that people ask about movies, right? I don't think you would say, "Have you read all these?" Other than just to be amazed if they did. But there's some tension around the question of have you seen everything you own, right? So I'll get into that in just a second. But I don't look at it that way. I collect and I buy things. I buy movies and releases that I either want to display because I think the packaging is so beautiful that it's just something that I'd like to own, or because I love the films, or because it's something where I view from a preservation angle that I'm helping to fund a company that is doing some great preservation work. And when I talk about vinegar syndrome here in a minute, I'll explain how the roadmap of how I hope a lot of other companies are going to handle preservation. I really love them and Agfar too. That will stand out to me. Um, but if I were to, just quickly here, my total collection right now is just about 5,100 movies, over about 4,700 releases. So obviously, some releases have multiple movies on them. So, but yeah, just over 5,100 movies. I've been collecting for about 20 years. I started in 22 years now. I started right around 2001. So I still have a few Anchor Bay DVDs from that time, but I don't have a lot of space. We live in downtown, and so our place is relatively small. Um, and my whole library right now is, if you can imagine having a young child and having a bedroom that has a race car bed in it, just to kind of indicate how old they are. And there are uh, sets of shelves, the Billy shelves from IKEA. I like the shelves because you can push the movies back and you can go too deep. So right now I have 5,100 movies displayed on 3 full-size Billy shelves. And then let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the towers. If Billy towers, I hope you know what I mean. They're the exact same height and depth, but they're much more narrow in width. And so they hold, yeah, I probably have room for another 500 or so before I'm going to have to figure something out. And realistically, what figuring something out means is I'll probably just downsize. I just got rid of about 1,200, yeah, something like that, about 1,200 DVDs about 6 months ago, to make space for some of the overflowing cabinets. So the things that I buy the most, I have 685 Criterion movies spread across, about 500 releases. 472 from Arrow. Again, these are movies. So some of this, the Gamera set or the Shaw Brothers sets, right? Arrow puts out these big mega sets that have multiple movies, but 472 movies, 294 from Vinegar Syndrome, 237 from Severin, and then it takes a big drop off there. Those are the big four that I collect. Um, Scream Factory, I have 159. The majority of those are box sets that I like their box sets a lot, or just specific horror movies that I like. About 140 from Indicator, 146 from Kino, and then I was surprised to see this, but about 97 movies from Agfa. So, if you look at they have 50 releases. A lot of them have multiple films on the release. So, total about 97 from Agfa. And then just I guess you would say, statistically speaking, a long tail from there, 20 here, 30 here, 40 here. But those are the big, the labels that I collect. And then there's this question about budget that comes up a lot. So I thought I would spend just a second on this. Um, again, I've bought, the size of the collection has not happened quickly. It's over 20 years, right? I would say that my budget has varied dramatically year to year. So I'm in a little bit of a later stage in my career. I have a little bit more disposable income, so the budget's higher now. But for a long time, I had a rule where I had a separate credit card that was just for movies, and I would buy, let's say, $200 or $300 of movies, $400 worth of movies on it, and I wouldn't buy again until the card was paid off. So if I happened to get, like a bonus at work, or if I happened to get Christmas money or whatever, I could pay it off faster. But that was the way that I budgeted. I didn't ever put, um, you know, multiple purchases on the card. So back, 20 years ago, it was you would walk into a Best Buy and spend $200 or $300 pretty easily. They had massive movie section. Um, and then over time, it went on to deep discount DVD, which just became deep discount. And then Amazon obviously got big for a while. And then from there, now there's a couple different places that I buy from. And my budgeting has the way that I spend has changed slightly. I don't have just the movie card anymore. But I thought for me that was a really good way to do it. Because if there was a $200 thing that I wanted, like a massive Scream Factory box or something, massive Severin box, plus a few titles, I didn't feel bad buying it because I knew that I would just kind of pay it off in 2 months, 3 months, whatever it took, and then I could buy again. So that worked well for me, and I didn't have to think too much about $40 a month or whatever. That's not really how my brain works. Um, Now it's slightly different. There's a bunch of expenses that we have every month. And so I just basically wait until all the expenses are paid off and stuff's in savings and stuff's in retirement and blah, blah, blah. It sucks getting older. There's so many things that need money. And then I just kind of take a look at what's left and then I buy from that. So some months it's less, some months it's more. Yeah, that's how I budget. Now, okay, there's this topic about blind buys that comes up a lot. So I just wanted to kind of put my flag in the ground for that. Um, I think the whole blind buy discussion is funny. And honestly, I think it's misrepresented on forums and by snarky folks on comment sections. Okay. So for so long, people would go to a movie without seeing it, right? And I mean, by the time you bought a couple of tickets to go to the movies and snacks and popcorn, you're $20, $30 in easily, right? I'm sure there's people that could say, well, yeah, but I went to the Dollar Theater and I brought my own candy. Fine. I know there's exceptions to this, but all I'm saying is there are the idea that there's somebody else curating releases for me, I really like. And I'm going to get into that and how I watch too. These two tie together. I'm very slow to blind buy from new labels in the sense of I'll buy one or two titles, but I never go big with a new label. But as you've heard on so many of these interviews, these labels are run by one, two, three people, right? In terms of who's curating the titles. And so as I learn that, for example, I don't trust Scream Factory, to I don't think they're highly selective. I think they just find horror titles and put them out there. Um, I you know I don't love all the titles in their catalog. So from Scream Factory and Shout Factory, because I don't trust their curation, I'll typically only buy movies that I've seen or a director that I love, or if there's something that is known, then I'll do that. However, there's other labels like Arrow, for example. I've discovered so many amazing movies through Arrow, and I know they're getting some flack recently for repurposing titles they already own into just like a box set or something. And I get those complaints. I totally understand that. But for me, the titles that I haven't heard of and I've bought from Arrow have all been a hit, with a few exceptions, but they've basically all been a hit. So I'll blind buy from Arrow because I trust the people curating that have a similar taste to me. So I feel like it's just the same thing as like sitting around a table with friends and like somebody recommends a movie and you go check it out. To me, it's the exact same thing. Criterion I blind buy because it satisfies. There's a part of my brain that likes to get into that canonical filmmaking, and the films that you learn about in school and the commentaries that go along with it. They pioneered these like deep insights and contextualization of like all these movies, right? So when it comes to Criterion, I love all of that, and I will blind buy from them for that reason. Um, and then the other one is Vinegar Syndrome, and it's actually for a different reason. So I had a hunch when I got into Vinegar Syndrome a few years back that they were going to continue going. I don't really know the best way to say it's upmarket in terms of like getting releases that more and more people know. I had this gut feeling that, if I invested in like the titles from Vinegar Syndrome early on through being a subscriber, that it was going to allow them to put out bigger and bigger titles. And the reason I wanted them to do that, bigger by I mean like more well known. I hope you all know what I'm saying there. But what the reason that was important to me is because I saw the care and love that was going into more obscure movies. I was like, wow, imagine if, for example, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 gets that, right? Like there's so many amazing um, titles that they are now able to put out because of all the investments people have made into their subscriptions and like the lesser known titles that they've put out. So for them, I blind buy for that reason, and it's paying off. And to be honest, I do like a lot of the movies that come out of there anyways. I happen to like the low budget aesthetic and kind of vibe, so it works for me. So I'm able to blind buy them and be very happy with it. Yeah, so that's how I budget, how I buy, why I'm okay with a blind buy, um, you know, and why I'm okay. I mean, I think the next question is obvious. Have I seen everything I own? No, but I'll, quickly go into kind of how I watch and how quickly I'm trying to, go through that. I actually, I do want to make sure that I see everything I own at some point. That is important to me. So I have a pretty systematic way of doing that, which I'll get into in just a second. And then the other question I hear a lot is, from the message boards is, what do you do with a movie if you don't like that's a blind buy? And it kind of depends. I don't personally like scalping people on eBay. Um, so what I'll typically do is if I really just don't want to own it, but it's like I don't out of print or something where it's selling for $90, I'll just sell it for MSRP, or like the price it came out at. So if it's a if it's a 4K something or UHD something, that's going for $60, the out of print it would go for usually 100, 120, 150 in that range. I would just put it for 60 or 50, or make it a part of a giveaway or something to try to get attention to the different writing that I do on the different subs um and letterbox. I don't really think about making money, turning it around to make money, like that. And sometimes I'll just keep it because my tastes change. I mean, I've had so many movies in the last few years that I didn't like. What's a good one? Blood Diner is one that when I first watched, I didn't really like it. Um, but then after seeing so many other movies now over the last 3 or 4 years, and going back to it, I loved it. So I also don't want to be too quick to kind of get rid of stuff and then wish that I had it later on. So I usually keep it for a while. And 3, 6 months, 9 months down the road, if I look back and think that I just won't ever watch the movie again or really hate it, then I'll get rid of it. But for the most part, like I said, this is kind of a library. So um, if there's a connection it has to a particular line where I'm trying to stay complete on them, I'll just keep it anyways, just for the sake of aesthetics and feeling complete. But if it's a random one like Scream Factory, like I said, where I have no desire to be complete on them, then I would probably sell that. Um, okay, so that kind of all ties in then to the question of watching, right? Because this is, or for me, it's very closely tied. So before 2019, when I really dove back into building the library, um, I would stream a ton. My wife and I, we stream just a ton of shows, and we were very current with, Game of Thrones was on at the time or whatever it was on. It was like, that was very important to me to be current with that. And I would say we would stream stuff all the time. We had all the streaming sites. I think got rid of cable in like 2011, 2012. And then from there, it was mostly just on different streaming sites that have kind of come and gone. But nowadays, I think it's very, very rare for me to stream TV or movies. I almost never go to Netflix to let them curate what I want to watch. I don't necessarily trust Netflix. Like it's so big. It's not one, or it's not a small group of folks that are curating that content. It's so broad and meant for such a broad audience that I've sort of lost interest in their curating. So um if there's a show that was really like, there's a show recently about this guy that goes and buys a football club in the UK. It was on Apple TV. Anyways, some of y'all will know what I'm talking about. You're probably screaming it at the phone, but we saw the first season of that and it was fun. But for the most part, I don't stream at all anymore, except for Great British Bake Off, which I will always see. They can release 100 seasons of that and I'll always watch it. I love that show. But that aside, um, I have a very systematic way of going through, and here's basically my philosophy, right? So I'm going to pull at any given time. I go to my shelves and I pull a group of titles, and then when I watch from the smaller group, is very flexible. But I always have a smaller label that I'm going through. So for right now, 88 films, the US line of 88 films, I have their first 11 releases. The rest are coming in. I think that some of them were delayed or something, but they're coming in May. So I'm going to be going through their first 11 titles. I'm on 5 right now, just about to watch 6. Um, and so I always have the next one. So as soon as I watch 5, I'll go and I'll put it on the shelf and grab 6. And that's a very satisfying action because it's like a physical, you know, moment where I've seen this one and I'm grabbing the next one to watch. I love that feeling. It's very exciting. I've collected a lot of box sets from Vinegar Syndrome, Severin, Indicator, and Scream Factory. And so, in addition to the one movie from the smaller boutiques, I always have to be going through one box set from one of those. So I'll alternate between, the more art house style, let's just call it, or classic films that Indicator puts out, versus the more horror stuff from Scream Factory versus the more genre films from Vinegar Syndrome and Severin that I feel are kind of kindred spirits there. So I'll be alternating between those, and I'll finish a box set, and then if I finish one from Scream Factory, then I'll probably grab one from Indicator, just to kind of mix it up. I always have a criterion that I'm going through. I don't know if y'all know this, but every week I write about a different criterion movie. I'm up to 96, and I've just seen 97, Do the Right Thing. Freaking amazing movie. Different episode just on that movie. It's so layered and nuanced and brilliant the way I loved it. But so I will be slowly going through. I own the first 275 in order. And basically, 4 times a year there's a sale and I'll fill the gaps. So I try to get every year I try to get another 25 to 30 criterions from the sales. So I might do 10 at a time or 11, whatever it is, just depending on how my budget is for that month when the sales happen. Um, so I always have one smaller boutique, one box set, one criterion, one arrow, and then now I'm going through and I'm going to start adding one Vinegar Syndrome because I have a lot of those titles to get through. Um, and then I have my Gen Pop section, which is just studio releases, and I have one of those at all times. And then I have something light that I always have. So right now I'm very slowly going through the whole Abbott and Costello box that came out. Um, so I always have one lighthearted thing to watch. And then I like to have something very kind of goofy. So Vinegar Syndrome archive line is amazing for that. I just last night saw Expect No Mercy, which is Billy Banks and Jalal Murray. Uh, they were like testing out VR in movies, virtual reality in movies. So they were wearing headsets and having this whole like, martial arts style battle with virtual reality. It was a mess and it was wonderful. I loved it. It was just what I was in the mood for because I had just seen Do the Right Thing and I needed to just clear my head and watch something dumb. So Expect No Mercy was perfect for that. So that's how I break it up. I get all those different, I like art house, classic, genre, horror, schlocky. I like to have something SOV or like really low budget that I can pull quickly as well. Which is why I'm so happy that VHS Hit Fest and Saturn's Core and all these labels are Visual Vengeance, all these labels are putting out this awesome SOV content. Because I like having some of these really no budget movies as well. And then at any given day, I'll just go and I'll kind of look and I'll pick something that I'm feeling like. So there's weeks where I'll watch 2 or 3 Criterion movies. That's just where I'm at, headspace. And there's some weeks where work is busy and I'm busy and life gets busy and I don't really want to. So, it's a heavy week for genre and schlock and horror. So I tend to, I just let my mood dictate what I have, but I'm intentional in the way that I'm going through and marking and writing about and cataloging the library because I do really like, it's a very satisfying feeling to be complete on something. So Fun City Editions, for example, I've seen everything that they've put out, at least through OCN. So I can just speak very freely about their titles or, The Deaf Crocodile is another one where I feel very comfortable. I like talking about Deaf Crocodile films because I've seen all their releases and they're putting out such interesting content that I like seeing it and talking about it and writing about it. So I really do like to do that. There's only one other thing that I want to touch on in this, and then I think that's probably already way too much on just on me, but I hope this has been somewhat engaging and interesting for you. I'll remind you again, I say this all the time, please like write something or comment on something. I would love to hear from y'all, and it's amazing and very humbling to all of us that there's somewhere between 1 to 300 people that just listen no matter what we put out. It's crazy to me, and obviously there's a part of us that hopes that grows, but I think the if I'm being honest with you, especially since I have a full-time work, the bigger part of me just would love to engage with y'all, see who you are, and just chat. So, anyways, if you have a chance, love to hear who's listening. And the last thing I'll say about me is, and this is kind of the more philosophical stance on movie watching almost, but it's something that I spoke about a little bit with the conversation with Mike Leader and Arna. If you haven't heard that yet, I know it's a bit daunting at 2 hours, but I would recommend checking it out. They are amazing storytellers, and I think their personalities really come through. But one of the things that they talked about that I wanted to put a little bit more attention on, because I think it's actually something that I believe is very important, is this idea that it's okay to watch bad movies, and actually there's a lot of value in watching bad movies. Um, I, I think it's very common for people to say, well, it's a wasted an hour and a half or wasted 2 hours or whatever. I get it. Like I really do understand that, and I can completely understand if you feel like everything I'm about to say is bunk and you just want to dismiss it, that's very valid. But I want to make an argument for watching bad movies. Not only bad movies, but there are uh, there are movies. I think okay, let me say it this way. I think movies are the same as food. It's the same as culture. It's the same as books. It's the same as any art form, any culture, anything that you can do in life where you are putting yourself in a situation that you don't fully understand what you're about to get into, and you're introducing a small amount of risk into your decision making. I will, until the day I die, which is hopefully a long time now, but I will constantly say that is a good thing to do. It is good to put yourself in a situation where there's a small amount of risk in the decision. Now, I don't mean don't I'm not talking about gambling, right? What I'm talking about is risk, meaning there is a risk that if you put on Critters 2 after you've seen Critters 1, you will hate it. Okay? But I just finished the Critters movies. That's why they're top of mind. I would have absolutely no desire to see Critters 1 through 4. Except I saw the first one, thought it was fun, so I'll give number 2 a chance. Saw the second one, thought it was fun, give 3 a chance. It had like 20% on Rotten Tomato or something. I don't know. People hated Critters 3. I think they're too hard on it, right? This is just my opinion. I liked it way more than 20% or whatever it was. I I'm never going to defend Critters 3 as being a good movie, but it was something that I opened myself up to. I spent time on it. I I had a different take on it than a lot of people that I trust. I thought it was fun and I would watch it again. It's a movie you put on when you're folding laundry and doing chores and you want something on in the background. It's not amazing, it's not groundbreaking, but it serves a purpose. It's entertaining. Same thing with the Anaconda movies that 88 Films released. After the second one, I think or I can't remember if there's 4 or 5 movies in the set, but the last 2 are the worst CGI I think I've ever seen in a movie. They're so bad, and the direct-to-video horrible. But I'm still happy to have seen them. I think I like this idea that there's a broad range of movies, and seeing Anaconda's 4, let's just say it was 4. I can't remember, whatever. Seeing Anaconda 4 with this terrible CGI and seeing what people did on a low budget there made me really appreciate Cornsucker when VHS Hitfest put it out. And I was able to compare those 2 movies and say Cornsucker is amazing because somebody did that on no budget, and the story itself and the way it was written was so creative and thoughtful and unique and interesting. And I was able to have that comparison of Anaconda 4 where it was lazy and they had a smaller budget and they probably felt victimized by that budget, and it kind of shows up in the movie. Like it's okay. I mean, I think it deserves whatever people say bad about it. It sucks, but I enjoy. I mean, I was able to get through it. It's fine. But I think that comparison between the 2 movies is what I love so much. And just like in talking about more, philosophy, there's this idea of you're not able to see light unless there's dark, right? So darkness is important because it allows you to see the light. There's this kind of idea, right? In religion, philosophy, like I've heard it in these kinds of discussions, right? And I don't want to go too deep into that. I don't want to make this too grandiose of a point here, but I think there's something similar in being willing to expose myself, and then I'm standing on a soapbox here saying expose yourself as well to bad movies. Not all the time, but I think it's for 2 reasons. One, because it helps you appreciate the full spectrum of filmmaking and have a broader be able to discuss more broadly what filmmaking is, which I think is important. But also, you will be surprised sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes you will be surprised, and it's moments that you put in for example, Prisoner 701, Female Prisoner Scorpion 701. Not that I thought it was a bad movie, but I had low interest in seeing it just without really digging into it too much. But because I was going through all of Arrow's titles, and I saw it, and it was probably my favorite movie in the last, I don't know, 10 years, 5 years. It was floored by it. So if I hadn't been open to at least just checking it out, or in this case, letting Arrow curate the content for me and just trusting them, and seeing what, I mean, I'm going to disagree with some, but the majority, they've always been right for me. I would have never discovered that, and I would have really lost out because that movie is so amazing and so interesting and innovative. So I'll leave it at that. Over the last, several minutes, you've gotten to know me. I appreciate you spending the time here. I hope to hear from you online. Please keep listening. Adam kind of mentioned we have a YouTube channel that's there. We're trying to figure out how to make it more consistent. So please be patient with us. We're going to get to a point where it's more consistent. We have a website. We haven't seen a lot of articles go up probably recently, but we are trying to figure out how to make that more consistent. This is not a full-time job for any of us, so please be patient. And thank you for listening, engaging in the ways that you do. We just are three guys that love movies, and so we love a chance to talk about it. And with that, I'll sign off. Thank you so much for the time.